So this isn't really just a kick the tires and light the fires kind of a boat. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be checked before leaving off for a trip. So I thought I'd go through that with you today. We're not leaving until tomorrow, but there's a lot of planning that can be done the day before. So I've started on that. I'm going to show you what I've done, and I'm going to show you still what's left to do. We'll go through it tomorrow during the actual startup. And tomorrow's trip is only 8 miles, but I still do basically all the same checks. It makes no difference if the trip is 8 miles or 80 miles. The same stuff needs to be checked and done. I use a checklist. This is my checklist. Somebody gave me the checklist. I don't know if it was the training captain. I don't know if it was the prior owner, Nordhavn, who, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But I've made revisions to it, and I've made it all my own. I think this is the third revision, and you can see I'm marking it up with stuff that I want to change on the next revision too. And also, since we are doing this a day in advance before leaving, it would be easy to forget tomorrow what we have and haven't done, right? So we use this, Angelo came up with this idea of using a dry erase marker on laminated sheets, and it's worked out really well. So as we complete stuff here, we can just check it off. So I'll show you what I've done. I've already made the route in time 0. So we're here, the red boat. Route for tomorrow is the blue route here down to here. God, there's a lot of boats down there. And then if you click on here, it'll tell you the total distance it's only 8.5 miles. And I've named it. Okay, so then if we go down here to the trip log that I've created, and I keep these in a binder. This is a good way just to keep track of all of our trips that we've done. So tomorrow's trip is Compass K to Big Majors, departure time, distance, ETA. I planned for 10 gallons an hour. That's conservative, but it gives us enough room in that for the engine, a generator, if we have a generator running, then some margin of safety. Yes, we have created a route in time 0. That's the name. I've recorded the engine hours. I've recorded which fuel tank we're using. We'll talk about that in a minute when we get down and do our engine room checks. And I've recorded the weather in both starting and ending location. It's calm. And same with the tides. The tides are available here in time 0, and it's really nice to have. There aren't a lot of tide stations to choose from. That's sort of a bummer. But the tide information is here in a very usable format. So we just scroll over to the day we're leaving, 3rd. And all the information's in there, the high, lows, graphical and tabular format. So I've recorded that on this sheet here so we know what we're going to have when we leave and when we get there. So if we go back to our checklist, I can check off the things that I've already done, right? Tides and weather. Coast Guard float plan. I do make out a float plan. That's basically a record of where we plan to be when, right? And we just send that to a family member. It's not being sent to the Coast Guard, even though it's Coast Guard form. And if we don't check in with that family member, it basically just gives them a starting place of where to look for us, right? If we don't show up in time. So I do use those. So the float plan is done. We created that route. We determined our destination, no secondary destination. Determine the fuel necessary. Secure all items. We'll do that tomorrow. Cabinets, refrigerators, etc. secure. We'll do that tomorrow. Here's one I've added. All doors and lazarettes unlocked. We'll do that tomorrow. Stern thruster tube, not necessary. Stack cover, not installed. Stack cover lights, necessary. Charge headsets, we'll deal with that tomorrow. And prepare new log sheets with all the information on it. We did that. So now that part of the checklist is complete, we'll go down to the engine room and start going through our engine room checks. So I'm in the engine room now, and of course I brought my checklist down with me, but I'm a big believer in flow. That is, check things in some logical order, whatever it is. Left, right, top to bottom, whatever works for you, do it in a logical flow, and then back up your flow with a checklist. So that wasn't how the original checklist that I inherited was formed. So I've sort of developed a flow of my own, have altered the checklist accordingly. Basically, when I come in the door here, I approach things in a clockwise fashion. So I'm going to start at my left foot, which I'll get to in a minute, and go around the engine room in a clockwise fashion. And then when I'm done, I'm going to check my checklist to make sure I got everything. Like I said, starting here at the my left foot, this left foot, when I came in the door, first thing I'm going to do is check the fuel supply valves down here. These are the 2 port side fuel supply valves, and there's 2 more for the starboard tanks in here. So there's 4 fuel tanks on this boat, 2 port, 2 starboard. And it's important to manage the fuel supply to keep the boat even. This boat tends to list to port, and we've figured out that it's best to use the port side fuel tanks first, at least draw them down some, before we start drawing down the starboard tank to keep the boat level. So we're only drawing off 1 fuel tank at a time, and that is the port side engine room tank. This is the only valve that's open. The valve handle's in line with the valve itself. This one is closed, the 2 others are closed. Now these are supply valves, and these should all be open. One thing I really like about Nordhavn is everything is neatly labeled on here, so you know what you're looking at. There's no guessing. So anyway, those are all open. That's exactly how we want them. And then in the day tank, I sort of, if you watched my power and water video a couple of weeks ago, you saw me do a fuel burn calculation on here. Now we're just going to verify that this day tank is indeed full, and the fuel gauge is all the way up to the top. That's good. And we're just going to depress this valve really quickly to make sure that the sight gauge is reading accurately. So this valve opens the sight gauge, and it's full. Perfect. All right, so that's our fuel supply. This is the starboard side tank. Again, we'll actuate that really quick. It's full beyond the sight glass still. That's fine. These are the Raycor fuel filters for the main engine, and this is a really nice system. It actually has 2 filters for the main engine, and then with a vacuum gauge on it, so you can get an indication if the filter's clogged or not. Now this valve indicates which filter we're using. We're on this filter on the right side. I only use 1 at a time, and the point of this is if this one clogs, this one is ready, right? While we're still underway, we can switch to this filter. Just with this, we can switch to this filter and continue without ever shutting the engine down. That's really nice to have 2. You know, some people run this in the both setting, running through both filters at the time, but that sort of negates the point of having 2, right? You want to have 1 in backup in case your first one gets clogged up. So that's the point. We can reach through here, just check the belt tension on that. The coolant level in the main engine is below this tank. It's not even showing up in here. However, I know that this is going to get full. When the engine warms up, it'll come up, you know, about halfway through this tank. So if we had this up at the cold level now, it would probably overflow once the engine warmed up. So that's not great. It just makes a mess, right? So this comes down to knowing your equipment. We do have a camera that we can see in the pilot house that actually shows this. So while we're underway, we can monitor this level really easily, and I'll show you that tomorrow. If you don't already know this, diesel engines draw a lot more fuel than they actually burn. So what isn't actually used has to be returned to the tank somehow. And if you do not give that fuel clear and free path back to a fuel tank, you're going to hurt something. Injectors or a fuel pump or something, probably injectors, I don't know. So anyway, there's a fuel return line. That fuel return line in this case comes in here via the main engine, so the fuel is coming up this way into this manifold, travels across, and we have it to go back into the supply tank. So these are velcroed with these velcro. These are secured in an open position so they don't accidentally get closed, but it's a really good thing to check too, because if these get closed, you are going to break something and it's going to be expensive. So this fuel has a free path to return from the main engine to the supply tank, or from the 9 kW generator to the supply tank, or from the 20 to the supply tank. The wing engine is its own animal. Now we could return fuel to any one of the other tanks as well. We could return it to the forward port tank, we could return it to the engine room port tank, we could return it to either of the starboard tanks, but we've sort of adopted a return where you burn philosophy. So we return fuel to the tank that we are pulling it from. In our case, that's the supply tank. So we're sending fuel back to the supply tank. So this is a good thing to check because, again, if you have any of these closed that are meant to be open, you're going to break something. That's going to be an expensive day. We'll check the transmission fluid for the main engine here. That's at a good level. Check the transmission fluid for the wing engine. It's also at a good level. Also on the wing engine, we'll check the oil level here. That's good. Check this belt tension. That's good. Just doing a quick look all over everything. Everything looks good. So back here, we're going to check the fuel level on the wing engine. The fuel level on the wing engine is in that sight glass there. It's bouncing around as the boat moves around. It's pretty full. It's a little bit of an exercise to transfer fuel in there, so I'm not going to do that right now. But if we do need the wing engine, we need to remember to transfer fuel in there. That's not gravity fed, that's a thing to get fuel in there. Okay, so as long as I'm here, I'm gonna check through holes are open, strainer baskets are clear. This one, through holes are open. Let's go in there. This is the 20 kW generator. We'll check the oil here. Check the fluid level. It's a little on the low side, but again, I know from experience that that comes up and goes perfectly in range once it's hot. Ground looks good. Also, by the way, I checked the coolant level for the wing engine over there. I think I forgot to mention it, but I did look at it. And again, it's a little bit low, but it comes up. As we work around the engine room in a sort of a clockwise fashion, we're going to go back this direction. Just sort of giving everything a quick look over for any leaks, anything like that that needs to be addressed. This is the sight glass for the port engine room tank. We're going to actuate that. This is quite variable. Something like 540 gallons or something like that, right? So this is our fancy fuel gauge. Pretty fancy. Put that there and we'll record that as 5, actually maybe 530 on our gauge, or on our trip lock. Up here, the hydraulic fluid, we're just going to check that level there, and it's full, barely shows on the gauge because it's so full. And then while we're running, we check the temperature here as well. There are other things in here that we will check tomorrow once we start the engines and stuff, and I'll show you that tomorrow. So if we look at our checklist, did we get everything? Oil levels, coolant levels, and belts on main, wing, and generator. Yes, did that. Verify all fuel valves are set properly, supply and return. We did do that. Wing engine fuel tank is full. Yes. And note which fuel tank is being drawn from on the trip log. Okay, we were going to do that. Fuel levels on the trip log, we're going to record that. Through holes are open, we checked that. Hydraulic tank oil level, we did that. Brake core filters, we did that. And the lever is in the correct position. Yep. Okay, and then these other items are lazarette items. We need to go check those next. Okay, so I think we got everything here in the engine room. We need to go to the lazarette and check some of the steering gear. So we'll go do that. So here in the lazarette, we're primarily checking steering gear. So we have the steering quadrant. Just make sure that's all tight. Nothing is visibly loose or obviously wrong. The autopilot feedback arms are under here. One there. one there. Both of those are connected. There's no leaks in any of the steering lines. And here, the bypass at the top is closed and the other valves are all open. So that's about all we're checking here. I would be checking the oil levels and things in the 9 kW generator that's behind me too, but I actually was just running that, so the readings are all going to be off. So I'll not do that. Okay, so back looking at our checklist again. We checked that the steering quadrant is tight, check top of rudder post and bearings, sensor feedback boxes and arms are secured, and that's good. Steering quadrant and autopilot valves and pumps for leaks, we did that. And the bypass valves on the aft bulkhead should normally be in the closed position. That was check. And then we're going to record the starting fuel level on here. So I had already written in that we're using the port engine room tank, and we're starting with about 530 gallons in that tank. Okay, so I think that's about the extent of the checks we can do now, the day before. And tomorrow morning we'll go through the startup process and all the checklists we do before, during, and after the starting the engine. Okay, it's moving day. We decided to stay at this spot a day or two longer than initially planned, and we also decided to change our destination, and I'll show you why. This is where we were planning to go, up here. That's what I originally showed you a day or two ago, and there's just a melee of boats up there. And so we decided to go just a few more miles south down here. Right now there's nobody showing down there. That's more my kind of party. So anyway, I updated the trip log with our new departure date, new weather conditions, and new destination. I did that. I also updated our Coast Guard float plan and sent that to a family member too, so that's updated and current. So it's time to go through the startup list, so let's do that. You might be wondering why I'm insistent about plotting a route and time zero for every trip, and let me show you why. If we look at where we're going into this afternoon, it looks like we could go directly from that point in, right? But then when you zoom in, it turns out there's a sandbar through here that you don't really see until you zoom in. And if we look at a different chart, if we pull up the raster chart, for example, it even says shifting shallow sand in this area. You know, if I had just decided to do this trip without planning a route, I may not have concentrated as closely on this. And by planning the route and looking at every point, it makes me focus more on where we're going. And so we have this dogleg in the route planned to go around that shallow area. There's a lot of shallow spots out here, plenty of which could just ruin our whole day. So we want to stay well clear of those. Okay, so next thing on the checklist is to start the wing engine. Control panels here. And then we'll walk outside and make sure we have water flow. It's a little hard to see today with the wind and the chop going, but it's, well, you can make it out. It's right there. So that's good. Okay, so we'll check that off. Next thing on the list is to go to the electrical panel. The one up here, God, everything's rolling around. Now this is the 24 volt electrical panel in the pilot house. Let's see, and we're going to turn on everything that we need that isn't already on. Most of this stays on all the time. Okay, autopilot we're going to turn on, radar 1, radar 2 we're going to turn on, spotlight we won't need, deck lights we won't need, stabilizers we may need, wipers we won't need, thrusters we will need, windlass is on. Down here is 12 volts. Incidentally, this is the only 12 volt panel we have in the whole boat. The only thing on here that I think we might need that isn't already on is the horn. We'll flick that on. Up here we'll make sure that our VHF radio is on. Volume's up on one of them, 16, and on the other one, channel 9. So that's done. Both screens are on. And we'll turn autopilot breaker. Then power on the autopilot panel. notice on here, this is our rudder angle indicator. This is the only rudder angle indicator we have on the boat. So we're going to do a steering test and watch that. So first I'll take the wheel block to block, first to port, and you can see that change. So I know it's going to take about 4 cranks to get through. That's 2, 3, and 4.5. 2, 3, 4, back to center. 1, 2, 3, and it's 3.5. It's fewer that direction. I'm told not to worry about that. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're back to center. Because I did that out of sequence. Autopilot's on. Stabilizers we're going to wait on. VHF radios are on. Stack cover we don't have. So next is to turn on the breaker for the main engine throttle and then turn the main engine on. So the breaker for the throttle control is there. We have to take control of it and then go to the main engine start panel. And that's going to come alive. There really isn't any exhaust water flow to check on the main engine because it is keel cooled. There's no water discharge. I discussed that a little bit in the bottom cleaning diving video if you watch that one. Turn on the throttle breaker, we did that. Power up the main engine, we did that. No hours on the trip log, I already did that. When I made the new trip log, I did that. So what is this? Remember, I'm making a bunch of revisions to my checklist still, so we gotta check what this is coming down. Stabilizers, so we're going to turn on the stabilizers now. Okay. All, and they're locked. So now we're going to check to make sure we have hydraulic cooling water discharging over the side, and that's on the port side. See that there, just right near that placard down there, if you can make that out. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so we'll check that off. Color we did. Oh, change AIS status to underway. This is something I always forget to do. Nav status, enter, underway. Okay, helm is free, turning block to block, we did that. We're going to get into this cabinet. And down here we check the fluid for the steering hydraulics and as well as the pressure up there, and that looks good. So now we're going to energize the bow and stern thrusters. We have to push these 2 buttons simultaneously to energize those. And we'll test the bow and stern thrusters here. To port. Okay, this will work. The stern thruster is a little harder to hear, but I could feel the boat move around too. All right, now we're going to test the wing engine in and out of gear. So I could hear the engine tone change. I could also hear a slight clunk from the prop as it opened up and forward and reverse. Remember, that has a folding prop on it, so there is a clunk when it opens and closes. So that's good. Now the main engine, this we already took control of by pressing the button. The light is on. So I could hear the tone of the engine shift, I could hear the prop wash, and then this has a tone to it every time it comes back to neutral, which I found to be very helpful. Okay, reverse. Okay, same. Everything works there perfectly. Back to neutral. So we can cross a few things off the list. Wing engine, main engine, thrusters. So now we'll go outside and do those same tests at the wing station out here on the starboard side. So the main throttle is not energized because the light's not on there. We have to take control of it by pressing the red button. The light comes on. Only one station can be energized at a time. So when I took control of it here, the station inside was disabled. Okay, same thing. I could hear the tone shift, I could hear the prop wash, and back to neutral. Good. Thrusters, again, we have to turn them on here. Bow thrusters are good. And the stern thrusters are good. Okay, that's all good. Back inside. We may not actually use the wing station today. In fact, I don't think we will, but it's good to know it's working just in case we do need it, right? Okay. Checks it. Wing station. Did that. Okay, we need to go downstairs. All right, so now we need to go downstairs, turn on some things at the main electrical panel, and do our final engine room check. So here at the main electrical panel, we do have a few things to turn on before we go. One of them is the tide seal alarm. That's the shaft seal. We have a temperature monitor on it. We're going to turn that on so you can hear an alarm upstairs just telling you it's on now. And we're also going to turn on the blowers in the engine room and the lazarette. We have 3 blowers in the engine room and we have 1 in the lazarette. We're also going to run a generator today. The windlass and the thrusters are electric, so we could run them off the battery. They're also getting some power from the engine alternator, right? But when the engine's at idle, the alternator output's really low, so essentially none. So I like to run the generator while we're using the windlass. Also, the anchor wash, which I'll demonstrate for you today, runs off the 20 kW generator. That's the one with the hydraulic pump on it. So we're gonna run the 20 so I can demonstrate that. And actually, I already have it running. We started it this morning. No, that's the 9 that's running. We need to switch. So we'll turn everything off that's running on the 9 kW generator. Start the 20. Switch to the 20. If you watched my power and water video, we talked about all this in a little bit more detail, a lot more detail. We'll turn on the 2 chargers. Might as well turn on the water heater as long as we're doing it. And now we'll turn off the 9. So now the 20 kW generator is running, and we'll go down now and do our final engine room checks. One of the only spots on the boat right here that I have to duck is coming down the stairs. I'm 6'2". This boat is pretty friendly for somebody that's 6'2", but there's a couple of spots. Okay, so it gets loud in here. As a matter of habit, I always grab a pair of ear protection when I'm going in. There's 2 pairs hanging right here on the door. You can't miss it. So I'm going to put these on. You may not be able to hear what I'm saying in there. I'm not sure. I'll point stuff out, and I'll do a voiceover later if I have to. So as we do the engine room check, there's certain things I'm looking at. In the day tank, I'm making sure the level is still full. Checking the supply valve to make sure that's still open. General look around to make sure there aren't any leaks or anything unusual. The coolant level in the main engine is still low, but that'll continue to come up. We're going to check the rate core filters, make sure the valve is still pointing in the direction that we want to use, and the vacuum gauge is still normal, so we don't have any clogs. The return valves are still correct. And again, just looking around for anything unusual or any leaks. And I'm always smelling. Belt smells, electrical smells, oil smells, anything unusual. We'll walk around the wing engine, look at the belt. Again, looking for any leaks, anything unusual. Same thing in the generator. This generator is the 20 that's running. We'll feel the water pump to make sure it's cool. If you watch the octopus video, there's a whole episode about that. That's all fine. And we'll just take a quick peek at the shaft to make sure there aren't any leaks or anything going on down here. And again, as I walk around, I'm just looking, listening, smelling for anything unusual or out of the ordinary. We'll take a look at the hydraulic cooling water flow, and this wheel indicates that we have good cooling water flow. And this is the hydraulic oil tank. We'll look at the level and the temperature in the tank, and both are normal. Level and temperature. Alright, so everything in there looked good to me. I think we're ready to go. One more note about that coolant level in that main engine. There's an enormous amount of coolant in that system. There's one loop that goes down to the keel cooler, which I talked about in the diving video, and there's another loop that goes all the way forward to the water heater to heat water. Just a massive amount of coolant. That level in that bottle will come up. Okay, so back at the checklist, I think we can check a few things off here. We checked everything in the engine room. We turned on the tide seal breaker and fans. Everything there is checked. Everything down here is checked. Here, tie downs and deck equipment are done. Cabinets, refrigerators, portholes, etc. secured. Headsets to go. So Angelo and I have discussed our departure plan. It's going to be very basic. We may have one or two twists in the anchor chain. Angelo's going to watch for that and slow down and let that work itself out if needed. So one last thing to do before we get underway here is to turn off the anchor alarms, both on my iPad and in time zero. You know, if you don't do it about the time you get the anchor up and you think everything's going just right, a bunch of alarms go off. And you have a little bit of helmet fire. Ask me how I know. So here's the anchor alarm on my iPad in the Aquamaps app. That's very easy to turn off. Enable, that's off. In time zero, it's also very easy. Remove anchor watch alarm there. So in time zero, the anchor watch alarm ring is now off. You might wonder how I suspect we may have a twist in the anchor chain, and this is how. We've been sitting here for, I don't know, 5 or 7 days or something, and you can see that the boat has mostly been over on this side. The yellow dot is indicative of where the anchor is. The boat's mostly been over here, but it has made a couple of trips around the anchor. So every full trip would be, potentially one twist in the anchor chain. If it went back that way, it would undo it. So if you had two going this way and one back, it would be a net one twist. I don't know how many we have. We may have one or two. I don't think it's going to be terrible, but that's how I suspect we may have a twist in the anchor chain. It's now time to put on our headsets. I bought these EarTec headsets primarily because it seems to be what all the cruisers use, and had a gazillion reviews on Amazon. I'm not thrilled with them. Enough said about that. But it does make me miss my Bose aviation headsets for sure. But they do stop us from yelling at each other, so that's a big plus. All right, so Angelo's up at the bow. He's going to control the windlass from up there. I could control it from here, but we find it's better to control it from there. And via hand signals, he's going to let me know where the boat needs to be so the windlass is not pulling the boat. We don't want the windlass pulling the boat. We want the engine to do the work. We just want the windlass pulling up chain. So now that the snubber's off, he can continue bringing the anchor up. And again, he's going to tell me where the boat needs to be. He's telling me I need to back up a little bit and bring the bow over to port. And I can look at the screen here and have a pretty good idea too of where it needs to be. The anchor's slightly in front of us, but to port, there may be a pilot chain slightly behind us. So now he's saying slightly forward and to port, which matches what I see on the screen, right? Okay, so I can see here he's got 6 or 5 feet left to come up. Anchor should be coming out of the water, and there it is. So he said we do actually need to wash some sand off of it, so it's a good thing I have that running. Okay, he tells me I can turn it off, so we're going to turn that off. And while he gets his safety lines and whatnot secure up there, we can start to get underway. Towards it, I'm going to navigate towards this first point on our route and then activate the route. In time 0, I'm going to right click, activate route, and it draws a line from us to there. I'm going to put it in nav mode. Okay, so that's about what it takes to get underway. I'm going to mark our departure time on the log sheet, and then I'll check back in an hour or so after being underway, and we'll do an engine room check. So we've been underway for a while now, and I'll just give you a quick overview on the things that I monitor while we're underway. I shut the wing engine down, so there's nothing to monitor there. I'm always watching the depth for obvious reasons. This is depth to the water line. Main engine controls, everything is normal there. The boat is on autopilot and we're tracking our course. Just because the boat is on autopilot doesn't mean that you're relieved of duty. It just means you're more monitoring instead of steering, right? So we're making sure the boat is on the course that we planned. We're always looking outside for traffic. We're looking for traffic on the AIS screen. There's only one there behind us. But we can also look at the radar and see if there's any other traffic that isn't showing up via AIS. That one AIS target is also showing up on our radar screen there. That's nice. And here's that camera in the engine room that I was talking about, and we can see the coolant level on the main engine now is in the normal range. It's nice being able to see that from the pilot house. So that's about everything I'm monitoring here. And we'll go down and do an engine room check, which we do about every hour while we're underway as well. All right, so we've been going about an hour. I'm gonna go do an engine room check, which we do about once an hour. Again, I've got my hearing protection. It's even louder in there now than it was when we did the check right after startup. So I don't think there's any chance you'll be able to hear me. I'll try, we'll see. It's probably mostly just pointing stuff out, right? But again, I'm smelling for anything that may be unusual. I'm looking for leaks and listening for anything unusual too. Even with the hearing protection, I can still, hear unusual sounds. See that the autopilot is steering the boat correctly. Everything's normal there. No leaks, no loose fittings. Everything looks good. Alright, so everything looked good in there. I didn't even try to talk because I knew you wouldn't be able to hear me. I did try to say some things in the Lazarette. Hopefully you heard that. Everything looked good. So we're going to continue on to our destination, and I hope this gave you more understanding of what we check and monitor both during startup and while underway. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.